Good morning, everyone. So we have guests from traditional fiat institutions, investment institutions. And the reason why we're here today is that a trend that we notice is that institutional money is flowing into crypto. And there's also other trends about investing in technology sector. So we want to discuss the scene and the investment scene from institutional in the world and in Vietnam. So we have guests here today. So hello, our special guest. So briefly, introduction about you, about what you're doing and how you are managing your investment. So please, Miss Ville, a lady here today.
All right, thank you, Antai. Lady first, right? Hello, everyone. My name is V. I'm the general partner of Do Ventures. We invest in technology companies in Vietnam and Southeast Asia. And so far, over the past 8 years, I've been involved in the investment space, and we invested in around 40 startups across different sectors, including e-commerce, fintech, AI, SaaS, and education, etc. It's pretty sad to hear the definition between traditional financial institutions and Web3, but I guess it's a wonderful time for us to discuss how we can blend in this definition, right, and help Vietnam to grow over the next phase of innovation.
Yeah, thanks, Ms. V. Please, Mike. Please, Mike.
So hello, I'm Will. I'm the Chief Marketing and Distribution Officer at Dragon Capital. I think echoing what V is saying, at least they're the cool end of TradFi, right? We are the truly traditional investor in Vietnam. We're the second largest investor in public equity in Vietnam after the government. We're 31 years old. What we are really looking at is that intersection between TradFi and DeFi. And as you heard about in earlier panels, what we have been trying to do is find a role where we can remain relevant and contribute to Vietnam's continuing growth.
Yep, and I was there in 1999 when RMIT was founded in Vietnam. So Dr. Huy, please.
Thank you, everyone. Hello, I'm Huy. I'm a senior lecturer in finance at RMIT Vietnam. I lead a fintech education there. We teach in undergrad and MBA level. And when I came back to Vietnam in 2017, it's been very astonishing to see how Vietnam has grown. And we can't wait to see how traditional finance and digital finance will emerge in the next decade, really. Very exciting to see.
Yeah, thank you, our special guest today. So let's start. The situation that we all know that Bitcoin was the white paper. We read the Bitcoin white paper in 2008. And then after 16 years, then we see that different countries have responded differently to blockchain and crypto. And the good thing is that this year, 2025, Vietnam started to do legal framework. And we finished the initial steps of the legal framework in Vietnam. Vietnam's government has remained relatively quiet on digital assets in the past years, but not this year. We've seen the law. We are expecting decree in August. So as institutional investors, then how do you view this evolving landscape, and what is driving the innovation and investment in this landscape? So please, Will, you say that Dragon Capital is the largest private investor in Vietnam equity. And also DC is also very active in investing in technology. So we respect that.
For those of you who've read the Satoshi Nakamoto's original white paper, thank you for referencing that, Mr. Huy. It's 9 pages long. It's not the easiest to read, but it's short. It's 9 pages. Why? Because it's razor focused on solving a certain set of problems. Regulation, however, is much broader. Regulation looks at numerous problems. And what we see is that the evolution of the regulatory landscape in Vietnam right now is addressing a broader range of problems of the future of the country. Now look, excuse me, I'm the Canadian here. I know it's ironic for me to talk about Vietnam and its future. Xin loi, especially to do it in English. But my day job is selling this country. Our foundation as an asset manager is bringing international institutions into Vietnam. We were set up in 1994 with a vision of the emergence of Vietnam. And what this conversation today represents is that next phase of emergence, which is not only about the growth of the economy, but the growth of each of you as individuals, how you build your wealth, how you nurture your families, the job choices you have. And we have an opportunity where the government has launched the next phase of reform to enable an even greater phase of growth, where a lot of that dynamism comes from within, and where the regulation is about setting the pathway for that in terms of the vision for the country, but also the role that the internet capital markets and digital assets can play in funding that, and what regulation needs to do. In the same way that Nakamoto was razor focused on solving a set of problems, the broad regulation that exists today also needs to focus on that same problem of the next phase of growth in Vietnam and how all of us here can be enablers.
Yep. We move on to Ms. B, please.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a great point to set a scene. I would like to comment a bit on the, the role of regulations and how it will impact the growth of builders in Vietnam, and also the participation of more financial institutions into this market, right? So I think the fundamental thing is how we can build great products that have a great impact on society and people's life. So without the legal framework, I think it would prevent so many great ideas to come into life, right? For example, if we want to use digital token or DeFi as a method to fund traditional business, right now we can't because there's no legal framework. Or when we want to build something very innovative, very new without a legal framework, I think the builder would feel it's very difficult for them to tap into the financial resources of investment fund. For example, we have a lot of VCs in Vietnam market, right? But it's very difficult for VCs to look into digital assets. And the other aspect is when a product got investment from private investor, the investor also need a way to exit. So I think we have a lot of concept in the Web3 scenes, right? From ICO back in 2018 to a newer version of ICO recently. But because of the lack of regulations, a lot of retail investor got hurt as well. So I think regulation would make it easier, more transparent, and have some legal boundaries so that all the investor can invest in a more legitimate and safe way. And I think they want to have their asset grow, not their asset loss. So I think regulation is a necessary component of this current market to for us to reach sustainable growth. So that's my view.
Thank you. So no other foreign university has achieved the success like RMIT Vietnam, and why we investors and startup founders, we get so caught up in our daily activities, building companies, investing, driving, solving problems, then people from educational institutions like you would you have a big picture view, and usually you consult regulators on issues. So how would Dr. Huy access the regulations in Vietnam?
Well, so the regulation doesn't happen overnight, obviously. I did have a chance to look at the multiple drafts that I have in the beginning, and did have some comments on that as well. So they have progressive, but they just wait for the right time to really issue the regulation, to promulgate the regulation. This has been going on for so many years now, to be honest. And right now we have one that recognizes the digital assets as in Vietnam already, which is good. But we have been building the next generation of labors that could have sufficient knowledge that will work in DC, in Do Ventures. That is how we have been helping the next generation of Vietnam growth. And with this regulation in mind, with that regulation, the builders in Vietnam, they have been building DeFi Web3 products so many years already. But with the regulation, we hope that when I have some official recognition and maybe more inflow from VC funds into those startups here in Vietnam. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. There are about 3 information that we want to know about fiat traditional institutions. One, the first crypto derivatives on fiat exchange were introduced in December 2017. 2, money is flowing into Bitcoin ETF. That's why we see the rally in Bitcoin leading the market in 2025. And 3, the reason regulatory requirement from Vietnam government would require 400 million USDT as charter capital for institutions in Vietnam, legal institutions in Vietnam for crypto market. So this is a time that if you come from the startup scene, this is a time that you look at traditional financial institutions and how they would affect us as well. So the next topic that we want to discuss is that in the financial market, there are banks, asset managers, VCs, PE funds, institutional investors like me, retail investors like all of us. So what do you see as the consensus among banks and asset managers and VC and LPs and investors on the market? And also congratulations on VP on your association, Ms. Vile, BBCA. So congratulations on that. So how would the consensus opinions of the institutions?
Thank you, Entai. Would you like to become a member of BBCA? So I think our view is that the movement of allocating asset to blockchain crypto has already been started globally, right? And I think in Vietnam, we don't have the right framework for institutions in Vietnam to invest in this type of assets. So I think the current change in the government is a very positive move that I can see. And the establishment of official exchange in Vietnam also allows the participation of not only institutional investor, right, but retail investor into the crypto space in a more legitimate way rather than just doing P2P swap on the global market. My view is that I think the fundamental of all business is the product itself. So I think we see different evolution of new products in the blockchain space. And the good news is that after the legal framework is more ready, I believe that Vietnam can be home to many new innovations, right? And there's a legitimate way for these projects to get funded. And then eventually, right, these projects can be listed on the exchange, right? So I think that is a very good prospect for the country. Talking about the evolution of the global markets, I think it's a matter of trust. So when Bitcoin just started, right, and the market cap was too small, no one cares about it. But I remember when the market cap of crypto hit about $1 trillion, and we started to see, future ETF, we started to have participation of corporates into holding the assets, right? And I think after market cap hit about 3 trillion, we started to see BlackRock launching spot ETF of Bitcoin and now recently Ethereum, right? And obviously, that's a chain that is inevitable, right? So for Vietnam, I do believe that with Dragon Capital and a lot of investors in the market, we will see similar structure, right? So first, we will have very similar structure to what global market has already launched, and then it will enable a wave of corporate institutions and retail investors to participate in this asset more.
Yep. Please, Will, how you see institutions?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. No, I think V explained it very clearly. There is a path to follow of innovations that have already proven successful globally. And those innovations have focused on access. Crypto custody is hard. I mean, I'm a nerd. I I first invested and lost Bitcoins back in 2011. Some portion of Trump's strategic crypto reserve is stuff the FBI took for me on Silk Road 1.0. So there's many people who want to participate in digital assets, whether from a diversification standpoint or a return standpoint, where custody is a real barrier. Dr. Hui and I were talking about this before. That is where there's a natural opportunity for institutions like Dragon Capital to provide an intermediary role. Capital markets are always about sources of capital, users of capital, and a medium of exchange. And the opportunity for us in the broader financial services industry in Vietnam is to evolve to be an effective medium of exchange where both a company who taps the internet capital markets can be confident in the availability of that capital. And an investor who goes into that internet capital market can be confident in its return. That trust enablement factor is so key, and this is the opportunity set for us to build upon today.
Yep. Thanks, Will. In all finance and technology programs, there are contents on financial markets and participants in the financial market. So how is Dr. Hui preparing your students and graduates for the market?
We do teach fintech. The course include all of the technology, including blockchain and cryptocurrency level for undergrad level to MBA level. So that's we have been educating a number of students in that sense. And it's quite interesting to see how the student mindset has changed over the last 6 years. At the beginning, they've been asking me in 2020, early 2020, they asked me, hey, which cryptocurrency should I invest? That is a question that I got, which one is the best? But then later on, right after COVID, that period, 2023, 2022, they asked me, hey, which company, which product should we put our money, our money in? Or I'm working on this product. Are you interested in advising me about the development of products or not? So they move their focus from investing to products. So they care more about the product itself because, they got through the market those times where they got scammed, really. And I believe that is how the Vietnamese retail investor are trained as well. They go through different market cycles. They got scammed a couple of times, and they lost their money, but they came back stronger with more knowledge. So that is how, that is a mindset I have been training my students as well. They should looking at the short-term investment, it should be long-term. And they should focus more on the product itself rather than short-term gains. And one thing about the Bitcoin is quite interesting is that about 7 years ago, when I see is that people keep talking about how they want to reduce intermediaries. They want to get rid of intermediaries. But now they came back. Hey, we need intermediaries in the middle. Funds like DC or BlackRock to hold the cryptocurrency because they worry that they're going to lose their money. They want to lose their wallet. So this is some very interesting change that I have witnessed over the last 7 years.
Yep, thank you. So the next information also for Dr. Hui. You, from institutions, then you have also the best set of data in your analysis and your regression and your analysis and your research papers. How do you view the money from money owners who will contribute who flow the money into the financial market for investing in tech startup? How are like pension fund, LPs money, limited partners money, in traditional investment fund, ETF, etc. How do you see where's the flow? How big is the market?
It's pretty big, I think, $1 trillion that we're talking about. Recently, I think Trump just signed a new directive, I think, about allowing pension funds to put their money into alternative assets. And they can allocate like 5 to 15%, I believe. And if we look at the conservative number of 5%, that is $1 trillion that we are talking about. And that's something that very interesting to see. Because pension funds are well known for its very safe approach. But now they are putting their money into like some risky assets, very risky assets like even for Bitcoin. But if we look at crypto alone, these are risky assets. But within that particular asset class, we have Bitcoin as the safest among the risky one. So I think Bitcoin and to some extent Ethereum, many people have been putting the money into Ethereum because of its staking mechanism. But it's something that I would say as well. Of course, in the futures, we might see some more ETF like Solana ETF, Ripple XRP ETF as well. But I think Bitcoin and Ethereum would be the tools that would be top of the market at this moment. But of course, because of diversification purpose, I think the more ETF we have, the better it's going to be for the investor.
To elaborate on Dr. Hui's point, he mentioned the pension fund. So what Pham did, so let me explain. What Pham did was he allowed 12 trillion USD to be legally invested in crypto. That's only for the US market. In all markets, then the pension fund are usually the largest holder of wealth and money. In Vietnam, then you see, we know Social Security, etc. So with the new regulation in 2026, then institutions are allowed to invest in a crypto scene. So this is what we want to ask Will about your LPs. So we want to know that now who your LPs are, what are they asking about crypto, especially when Vietnam is among top 3 in adoption.
So our investors are predominantly international institutions that range from family offices through to sovereign wealth funds, through to fund of funds. Because these are large institutions, their portfolios will be very diverse and will have different pockets of investment. So the type of people who we would be speaking to in one institution would be the ones buying public equity. Their colleagues sitting in the next desk may be the ones buying digital assets. So they're different conversations. We're not the natural starting point for someone to come and invest in digital assets in Vietnam today. However, even our conventional investors are asking about the impact of digital assets on the evolution of the Vietnamese economy and the types of companies that are listed. Vietnam, as an export economy, if you will, has 3 phases, where phase 1 was about agri-products. Phase 2 was about supply chain, where we are today. But phase 3 is about technology and SaaS and all the amazing stories we just heard in the last panel. And the question we get from our investors is, as those stories scale, will they IPO in the conventional markets? Or will they proceed to the digital capital markets? How does that create the availability of opportunity for us, and by extension, our LPs, for future investments in the growth in the Vietnamese economy? The other question we get is, when do existing conglomerates begin to use digital tools to raise capital? The use case we hear about all the time now is real estate, with limitations on developers to use pre-sales to fund. Can they use tokens as a way of raising funds instead? And these are the questions that even conventional investors ask us about to understand how it evolves the broader marketplace.
Yep, thank you. So Will mentioned the real estate market, and we all know that in all markets, real estate is the main asset class. So if we can tap into tokenizing that, then that will be huge. Another huge number is that I'm congratulating Ms. V for co-founding VCPA, and VCPA is tapping into a potential amount of money of up to 35 billion. And I congratulate on that. So can you comment on your partners, your LPs, the wealth, how are they looking at the tech scene in Vietnam and cryptos?
Thank you, Antai. I think just to clarify a bit, I think the 35 billion is the goal that we want to mobilize for the private capital market in Vietnam. I think just similar to what we described, right? I think LPs of most private funds would be sovereign funds, fund of funds, family offices. I think it's pretty much the same set of investor, but they would have different people at different desks looking at different assets, right? I think all of us, we want to share with the foreign investor that Vietnam is a growing economy, right? And going back to the question that you asked, and my view is, it all come back to the fundamental of the countries, right? So I think our country is great for, building technology products. We already have cases where some of the projects in the crypto space is actually the trendsetter on a global scale, right? I think we started doing copying or following some of the trends, but we are now changing our position from trend follower to trendsetter. And that's a very important story for Vietnam. I think moving ahead, right? For us, regulation is very important because LPs need to understand how we recognize the asset, how we, value the asset. And I think most of the big auditing firm, I think it's still a big debate, right? How do we, actually do a fair value of the cap asset? And if a fund is raised, then we need to be able to answer all these questions, right? Especially in a new market like Vietnam. Investors need to be able to understand, how Vietnam government views the holding of the asset. And at the same time, whether a company, the underlying asset that we invest in, do they recognize these revenue expenses correctly? How do we value both the equity part and the token part of the company we invest in, right? So these are some of the puzzle piece, but I think it's not going to be difficult to get answers. And in terms of use case, I think there's huge potential in so many use cases, right? I think real estate market definitely one. I also work with different companies that tap into different markets like music, royalties. I work with insurance companies, also want to use the blockchain technology to make it more decentralized and be able to have a more cost-efficient model. So I think the more important aspect of Vietnam is how do the builders actually utilize the technologies to build real company, right, that generate sustainable growth.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. V. So I'd like to share that exactly, so about taxing in Vietnam, exactly 20 years ago, the first VC of Vietnam was founded. That was IDG Venture. And shortly after that, Cyber Asian Ventures was founded in Vietnam. And it is inspiring that Dragon Capital at that time was talking about investing and getting more into VC and looking at technology. Dragon Capital, although you are public investor, you're always ahead of the curve. I talked to Dr. Tuấn from DC, and he's always tech savvy. It's always inspiring talking to him. He knows everything and anything ahead of the curve. So as DC, you are one of the early players in Vietnam in exploring tokenization of products. So from your perspective, then what are opportunities and challenges that you're seeing bring real-world assets on-chain? And how will you support players in Vietnam for doing that this year, next year?
I think V and Dr. Hui already have alluded to one of the core problems, which is you need liquidity in both directions. Somebody needs to be able to buy into an investment. Somebody also needs to be able to realize an investment. And thank you very much for your kind words about Dragon Capital, but we don't pretend to be Goldman. We don't have the smartest guy in the room vibe. That's not our shtick. What we do, however, is we look at innovations in the global capital markets and identify when they're relevant for Vietnam. And that's what we're doing right now in terms of digital assets. What do we see? We see, I think it's even stronger than the word inflection point. It's a tipping point where the adoption, even with all the friction of getting money into digital assets today, right? How many PlayStation accounts at scale have been used for peer-to-peer buying of coins? Vietnamese are second or third largest holders of digital assets globally. Turnover in the listed equity markets is $1 billion, $1.5 billion a day. Daily trading volumes of digital assets in Vietnam around 5 billion. The consumer in many ways has already spoken that it has a preference for assets in a digital format. How do we service that? But service that with a confidence of being able to go in or go out, to avoid the scams, to give the liquidity. When we talk about pension money, that is people's retirement and old age. That is what allows you to grow old and die with dignity. Having a risky asset in that is about its risk versus return over time, not day trading. And so this is where for us as an asset manager, we always have to recognize the fiduciary duty, the responsibility of ensuring that people continue to have access to their money, or that the risk and return is fairly compensated. And so for us right now, it's saying, to how he expanded, what are use cases where there are problems? Real world assets start with real world problems, where the blockchain can help as a data structure to provide transparency, and where digital assets can help as a form or a medium to support liquidity.
I want to add to that a bit. I think beside what we said, the challenge I see is the lack of legal framework, right, to ensure the enforceability of the digitized tokens right now. And I think government will move in different waves, right? Like first wave, as Vietnam right now, I think we're on a good path to recognize the legitimacy of digital tokens. But then there need to be more regulations, right, regarding tagging this real asset with tokenized asset, right? So when regulations is more mature, I think pretty much we would see these use cases come to life. But without that regulation framework, right, I think it's very challenging, not just for Vietnam, but for the global market to see real asset come to tokenized items.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. Miss V is among the first successful startup founders in Vietnam. She was talking about Web 2 to Web 3 distinction, but she was the one, like 20 years ago, she was the one who bring real world assets, fashion, and F&B in the Web 2, in e-commerce. And then she moved on. So now we are talking about Web 2 and Web 3. So Ms. V is the co-founder of Do Ventures. We want to ask about, from your experience and from looking at the Vietnam market right now, then how do you look at stablecoin? How do you look at potential for stablecoin in local currency, given the USD and Vietnam Dong exchange rate? How do you look at payments, tokenization payment, wallets, embedded wallets? Because those are the products that of Web3 that we are talking about. So,
thank you, Thai. Again, thank you for the compliment, but perhaps you make me feel old because you said that 20 years ago, but that's true. Yeah, so I think obviously now the government is trying to formalize the exchange, right? I think that's a very fundamental step to enable the exchange of fiat into cryptocurrency, right? That's the first step. And we do have different, stable coins options out there, mainly in US dollars. Whether we do see VND stable coin, I cannot comment on that. But obviously that's another way, right, for the Vietnamese to, to exchange fiat into crypto asset and be able to make more transactions happen on the exchange. And obviously stablecoin is it's a very good business, but it's not an easy business to govern properly. So I would say that in order for stablecoin in Vietnam to happen, right, the involvement of the government in terms of forming the right regulations and choosing, right, the right company to start a stablecoin project is very critical, right, to ensure the safety and the transparency of the stablecoin projects. But to comment on that, obviously, that's an inevitable trend, and we will definitely see the light of the stablecoin in Vietnam.
So question for Dr. Huy, and please elaborate on
yeah,
those points.
Yeah, I can elaborate on GV point is that for stablecoin in Vietnam, definitely we're going to have some Vietnamese-backed stablecoin, right? Because there's no way the government is going to allow USDT or UTC to be traded on the exchange. But the key things about stablecoin here is that when you invest in cryptos, you invest in crypto, right? And sometimes you invest in crypto and you are lost. So many cryptos out there, you don't know what to choose. And sometimes you just want to reserve your money in stablecoins. Could be you can convert your VND or to USDT or USDC, or you can just simply hold your VND in your wallet. But how can you make money on those stablecoins that are holding on your wallet? Do we have solution out there that could help you with your stablecoin as well, even from the institutional perspective? So you don't have to actually invest in cryptocurrency, but you can hold stablecoins, and they have different protocols that allow staking your stablecoin that could generate the yields as well. So that is, could be one solution for institutional investor. So yeah.
So questions for Dr. Huy. Then Vietnam is among top 3 in adoption, but how about business models? Then what are available in the US that Vietnam need to learn from? What Vietnam is strong, Vietnam startups are strong in what business model that you observe? For example, wallets, transaction, SME, non-bank finance, etc.
Oh, from what I see here, whatever available in US, we have here in Vietnam at a smaller scale, really. We have exchange here. We have Kyberswap. We have C98 wallet. We have so whatever the global players have, we do have it here. But what we need here is that one day regulation comes in early next year, and I do expect we're gonna have some the second wave of regulation to regulate the market even more. Then we're gonna see the really a huge adoption in the Vietnamese market. But don't worry about the products, really. That is the least thing that I'm worried about because we have so many things in Vietnam, really. And we have companies that they are headquartered in Dubai because we don't have a regulation here in Vietnam. And they have to go to Dubai, but they are developed by Vietnamese developer. They are founded by Vietnamese. And so the way we forward is that we have to bring them back home. So that is a key question. And we need regulation. We need more incentives for them to come back. And one regulation that can help them not only reach out to the Vietnamese, but can help them go global as well. Yeah.
So, so question for Ms. V. Then within 1 to 3 sentences, what do you expect Vietnam market when new regulation will be in effect next year?
Yeah, so everyone knows Vietnam as a huge trading market, right? So I hope that in the next 1-2 years, I think Vietnam will be known for the next blockchain innovation hub globally, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Question for Will. Also the same question for Will.
I think provided we can achieve alignment between the solutions the blockchain delivers and the government's reform objectives right now, we can see in 3 years' time Vietnam having leapfrogged other markets globally in terms of the breadth and depth of digital asset applications.
Yeah. And same question for Dr. Huy.
What's the question again?
The opportunities for Vietnam and how Vietnam will look like when new regulation will be effective next year.
Blockchain and AI adoptions is what I can see. Whatever products are going to integrate both in the future, going to win. And the first mover advantage would always be the key. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Ms. Ville, Do Ventures, Will Ross, Dragon Capital, Dr. Huy Pham, RMIT Vietnam, and I'm Tran. Thank you very much.